Hello, Toros. Welcome to another marvelous Monday. It is March 29th, 2021. This week is a short week, guys. So we will be beginning the the Reconstruction era of the United States. So our objectives for today, students will know why Lincoln was assassinated and the Reconstruction plans. Students will understand the significance of the assassination of Lincoln and the Lincoln, Johnson radical and radical Republican Reconstruction plans. Students will be able to discuss and summarize the impact of the assassination of Lincoln and the Reconstruction plans, Lincoln, Johnson, and radical Republicans, or congressional Reconstruction on the North and South after the Civil War. So let's look at Reconstruction after the Civil War. Please follow along with the readings. The Civil War is over and the North has won, but now the North must rebuild the South. The Civil War has damaged the South's economy. The Civil War has left the South with ruined buildings. Many millions of African Americans are now free from slavery, but how will they live? How will the African Americans gain their rights? The government of the United States must now solve the problems created by the Civil War. So, what were those problems? Those problems are they had to rebuild the South. The economy was damaged, the buildings or infrastructure was damaged, and then the question of how will these millions of freed African Americans who were once enslaved live? How would they gain their rights? So those are the problems that were faced. The government must now reconstruct or rebuild the economy. So the reconstruction is rebuilding of something. So in this case, it was rebuilding the South. This time of, excuse me, the government must now reconstruct the economy, the buildings, and even the culture of the South. This time of rebuilding is called Reconstruction. With malice, hatred towards none, and with charity, love for all. Abraham Lincoln, second inaugural address. Abraham Lincoln had a plan for the United States. He wanted the United States to be a whole nation again. He wanted to peacefully accept the Southern states back into the Union. And so Lincoln actually had a plan and he called it the 10% plan. He said once 10% of the population of a state um, acknowledged that it was wrong for them to leave the union and that they wanted to be back as part of the union, they could be accepted back into the union. He didn't want to punish the South. He wanted to welcome them back to create a unified country once again. Unfortunately, um, he wanted to peacefully accept these states back into the Union, but when President Lincoln was assassinated or killed, his plans of peace with the South was lost as well. Andrew Johnson, who was Lincoln's vice president, now becomes president when Lincoln was assassinated. He wanted to continue President Lincoln's plan. He allowed the southern states to rejoin the United States with only a few rules to follow. Many people were angry with President Johnson's plan. African Americans were free from slavery, but were still being treated poorly. They did not think President Johnson was doing enough to change or punish the South. These people were part of the Republican Party. With these men became known as radical Republicans because their ideas differed so much from the president. They began to fight President Johnson for control of Reconstruction. Reconstruction changed life in the South. African African Americans began to gain their rights only to see them taken away a few years later. As you learn more about, as you learn more details about this time period, you will need to think about this question. Was Reconstruction America's greatest failure or success? So let's think about it. What challenges were faced the United States during Reconstruction? Well, if we go back and we look at the problems, the issues that we face with the concept of having to rebuild infrastructure, buildings, the railroad, telegraph line. Because if we remember during the Civil War, the Union Army destroyed a lot of those things in the South. We now have to rebuild the economy because with the Anaconda plan, we kind of shut down the economy of the South. And we must rebuild relationships with the South, rebuilding that culture. And again, we still have to figure out how we're going to introduce these millions and millions of slaves that were now free back into society. So those were some of the issues that they had to um, deal with during Reconstruction. Now, not and don't forget that Lincoln being assassinated put a big dent in their plans for Reconstruction because he had a plan, and then because he was assassinated, Johnson came in and tried to continue Lincoln's plan, but because his plan wasn't strong enough for the some people, the Republican Party, he decided to he had to face contradictions between them because they had different ideas. They wanted to punish the South, not let them come back freely. So let's look at presidential and radical Reconstruction. So, presidential Reconstruction. After the assassination of President Lincoln in 1865, the new president, Andrew Johnson, was faced with a problem. How do you allow the Southern states to rejoin the Union under Johnson's presidential Reconstruction plan? The states that succeeded from the Union did not have to do much to come back. So, in order to rejoin the United States, the Southern states should only have a few requirements. There were three. One, abolish slavery, which means they had to ratify the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Two, they had to take an oath and swear loyalty to the United States. And number three, pay off their war debt. So those were the three things that Johnson said that the southern states had to do in order to be accepted back into the Union. President Johnson believed that the states should be able to choose their own government. President Johnson also believed that all land taken by the Union Army and given to free slaves by the Army should be returned to its owners. Because President Johnson did not enforce many of the new laws passed by the federal government, life did not change much in the South. Many southern states passed laws known as black codes, which were created to restrict freedmen's, former slaves, activity. These strict laws angered many congressmen in the North. Congress even refused to allow representatives and senators elected from southern states to join them. In early 1866, Congress passed the Freedmen's Bureau and Civil Rights Bills and sent them to Johnson for his approval. The first law increased the power of the Freedmen's Bureau. The Civil Rights Act declared everyone born in the United States a citizen. Johnson vetoed the bills, which upset Congress. Remember, veto means to throw out, to cancel. He didn't approve it. So Congress decided to act against the president. The Civil Rights Act became the first major bill to become law over presidential veto, which means they were able to go over the president and pass it, even though he vetoed it. Later, Congress worked to impeach or remove from office President Johnson. And guys, we have seen this process, this application of government here in recent terms. President Trump faced the impeachment process not once but twice during his presidential term. And so we've actually seen how that plays out. There is a vote in the House, and then a trial takes place in the Senate. Okay. So let's stop and discuss what were Johnson's goals as president. Were Johnson's goals as president was pretty much to rebuild the Union and follow Lincoln's plan. He wanted to continue what Lincoln had started. He didn't want to be harsh on the South. He wanted to kind of rebuild this Union again. What problems did Johnson face during his presidency? He faced opposition from Congress because Congress felt that he was too lax um, on the South, and then he had issues with not backing or enforcing some of the laws that he put in place, and so the life in the South really didn't change much. And if you guys would like to, I would ask that you click on the link, and this link will be in your assignment that you have to open up, and you can watch the video clip about Johnson. You can't click the one here in the video, but you can click the one that's in your assignment. And so let's look at radical reconstruction. Radical reconstruction, or another term for it could be congressional reconstruction. After Congress rejected Johnson's plan for Reconstruction, Republicans took over Reconstruction in the South. In 1866, again over Johnson's protest and veto, Congress passed the Reconstruction Act of 1867, which temporarily divided the South into 5 military districts. This law also required Southern states to ratify the 14th Amendment. This amendment focused on citizenship. It gave equal protection of the Constitution to former slaves. Congress also passed laws in limiting the power of the president. When Johnson broke one of these laws, the House of Representatives tried to impeach him. Andrew Johnson was able to stay president by one vote from a senator. So he was one vote short of being impeached. Even though Johnson was still president, Congress was in control. Radical Republicans passed laws to strengthen federal power in the South. In February 1869, Congress approved the 15th Amendment, adopted in 1870, which guaranteed that a citizen's right to vote would not be denied on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude, which means if they had been a slave or not. By 1870, all of the former Confederate states had been allowed back into the Union. African Americans began to participate in their own government. Many African Americans were voted into office, including Hiram Rhodes Revels, who became the first African American to serve in the U.S. Congress when he was elected to the United States Senate. So, how did Reconstruction change the lives of African Americans? So, how did Reconstruction change the lives of African Americans? One, they began to get rights. So, it gave them the rights to citizenships by the 13th Amendment. Excuse me, it gave them freedom by the 13th Amendment. It gave them citizenships through the 14th Amendment, declared them citizens. And that was a big thing because if you remember the Dred Scott decision, it said that freed or enslaved people were not citizens. So they earned their citizenship. And then by the 15th Amendment, now they had the right to vote. So free, 13, citizenship, 14th, voting rights, 15th. Okay. So they were able to get those rights. Why was President Johnson impeached? Based on what we read, is because that the congressional Republicans did not believe Johnson was doing enough to punish the South. Plus, he wasn't really enforcing the laws that were being put in place. What are some of the similarities and differences between the Reconstruction, presidential Reconstruction, and radical Reconstruction? Well, let's go. So let's look at some of the similarities. How were those plans alike? So what I want you to do is go back and look at the presidential Reconstruction, and I want you to look at the radical Reconstruction and see if you can figure out the similarities and differences of these two plans. Okay, So today, guys, we have talked about the assassination and the two Reconstruction plans, presidential and congressional or radical Republican. You should be able to understand the significance of the assassination of Lincoln and know that because Lincoln was assassinated, it affected how we went about Reconstruction. Students will be able to discuss and summarize the impact of the assassination of Lincoln and the Reconstruction plans, Lincoln, Johnson, radical Republicans on the North and South after the Civil War. And I do believe we have done that today. So, guys, make sure that you have completed the vocabulary, which is right here. So Carpetbagger impeached 13th, 14th Amendment, assassination, 15th Amendment, black codes, scalawags. Those are our vocabulary words. Carpetbagger, vagrant, freedman, Freedmen's Bureau, district, convict, lease, Ku Klux Klan, sharecropping, poll tax, radical Republicans, literacy test, and impeach. um, Make sure you know what those words mean. And all you're doing is simply clicking and dragging the vocabulary words. So on slide 6, you guys will be putting in the information for presidential reconstruction, congressional reconstruction, and the assassination of Lincoln. So congressional, presidential reconstruction, congressional reconstruction, the assassination of Lincoln. And so those are these sections we will be taking care of today. You will also be looking at slide 10. Um, make the readings and answering the questions. Use the video links that are there. And then here's some more information over radical presidential reconstruction. And then you will answer the questions here. So please make sure you get the work done. And that's information from slides 2 through 5 is vocabulary. You're going to complete the sections for presidential reconstruction, congressional reconstruction, assassination of Lincoln. We'll get more into the Reconstruction Amendments later in the week. And then you guys will come down on slide 10 and work your way through slides 10 all the way through slide 15. All right, guys, that is our assignments for today. Have a great one.